Girl does. Let me hear you for a minute. In November, when we go vote, and you close that curtain, and you vote Biden Democrat, when you walk out, look your daughter in the eye. Tell her she could be forced to change with a man who identifies as a female. She could be forced to compete with a man who identifies as a female. She could lose a scholarship to a man who identifies as a female. And if your daughter, by chance, ends up in prison, she could be forced to house with a man, prisoner, who identifies as a female. We get to vote. It's your choice, your right. But you should know, this here is the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, being asked some questions that you may want to listen to.
Recognize myself. Mr. Secretary, you're going through great lengths to argue that the new Title IX rule will not have an impact in athletics. Setting aside the absence of court decision preventing it, and setting aside the fact that athletics is printed over 30 times in the rule description, I have some very simple questions, straightforward questions. I'm just hoping to get some yes and no's. With energy put into Title IX rule changes, it's a 3-year effort. Can you assure us that your rules do not change protection of our girls that have had for over 50 years? Can you assure us that protecting biological girls from competing against genetically stronger, bigger, and faster biological men will not be considered a federal discrimination?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. You are referring to athletics, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that rule-making process is underway. We haven't.
Okay, really,
we haven't finalized the rules.
Okay, so is it a possibility that this girls competing against boys or refusing to would be considered discrimination? Is that a possibility?
I'm here to discuss, what we're doing in education to help children. Propose rules, whether
it's really a yes or no. I mean, it should be a yes or no. It's a bridge that we all know that you're trying to get across. So is this something that you're looking at doing right now? Possibility?
I don't want to comment on a proposed rule that we haven't finalized yet.
Okay.
We have over 140,000.
Let me just continue then. Mr. Secretary, you're in a very unique position to impact the lives, futures, and fortunes of millions of female athletes. Americans on both sides of this debate need to know how deep your commitment is. Would you force your daughter to undress in the bathroom with boys who are also undressing?
I am not going to be commenting on athletics rules that we haven't.
Okay. You can't say yes or no on that?
I'd be happy to talk about a Title IX.
If your daughter was reported she felt uncomfortable in a boy's presence in a bathroom or locker room, would that be considered by your administration discrimination or bigotry?
As an educator for over 25 years,
you can't say yes or no to that?
I'd love to respond to your questions.
Okay, so yes or no. Would it be considered discrimination? She would not want that to happen.
Yes, no.
As an educator for over 25 years, we have had the
Okay, all right. I don't have but a few minutes here. Girls have now entered into contact sports of boxing and wrestling. Would you allow your daughter to physically fight and get beat up by a boy who called himself a girl? Yes or no?
Be happy to, once we finalize our regulations on Title IX athletics, to come back
let me
and
just
have
say
a
this.
conversation with you.
Let me just say this real quick. There's a Cherokee proverb that says, "A man's highest calling is to protect women, so she is free to walk the earth unharmed." I'll say this, Mr. Secretary, before I go on to this next topic. With all due respect, I pray that our country will never, ever have the vision that your policies are now driving us toward in terms of manhood. It's a vision that teaches our boys that harming girls is no big deal. I pray that we remain a country that produces overwhelmingly mass majorities of men who feel the way I do about my girls. I would give my life in a heartbeat for my girls. And the blessings I have is they have no doubts about that. There are millions of men and women across this country that do not have faith, do not have trust in you protecting our girls because of policies you can't say yes or no to. By the way, those are not very hard questions as a father. It's either yes or no, and you could not answer that. Okay, I'm gonna switch pages real quick. At the Senate Appropriation Committee hearing last week, you stated that there's an active investigation at Columbia University, but your staff is not on site. As protests and harassment of Jewish students continue at Columbia University, this is an opportunity for the Office of Civil Rights to see firsthand what's occurring and how Columbia is failing to protect the rights of its students. You implied earlier that you were running out of funds.
That's a Biden appointee. That's a Democrat. Pains me. Because it ain't supposed to be like this, you know. It's not so. This ain't supposed to be politics, but it is, and now it has to go. You see, I don't hate anybody, but I can't just sit around and act like this is okay. So, in November, you know how I'm going. And this is a main reason why the border, but this one here, nope. This ends in November 6th. Done. We come.